On today's episode of COCINA Pirata Podcast, I'm joined by my good friend Danny Johnson. Under the moniker Self-Help, Danny has created a unique style of genre-bending music, sonically driven by the desire to see you smile and enjoy yourself. From his humble beginnings as a DJ in the backpacker hip-hop scene of Cleveland, Ohio, he has evolved musically and spiritually through his dedication to his craft as both a form of expression and therapy. Join us as we sit down to discuss survival in New York City, finding enlightenment, and the evolution of his newest project, Au Contraire.
Contra la muerte nosotros demandamos vida. Contra el silencio exigimos la palabra y el respeto. Contra el olvido, la memoria. Contra la humillación y el desprecio, la dignidad. Contra la opresión, la rebeldía. Contra la esclavitud, la libertad. Contra la imposición, la democracia, y contra el crimen, la justicia.
What is up? What's up, brother? How you doing? You're
man.
Weathering the storm in New York. I do. I love it. It looks beautiful, man. I wish we could. Someday we'll get video, and then you'll have to bring this back. Is that a personal touch? Or is that just one of the ones?
No, I did it. It's from an article about platypuses. They can, under a black light, they glow in the dark. They're like one of the weirdest animals. They're like one of the strangest animals in the world.
Yeah, that is odd, and I never knew anything about it. You don't really learn about platypuses in science class or natural history class. I guess I never had a natural history class in high school. I dropped out of high school, so.
Oh, well, that doesn't help. But no, we didn't learn about it either, to be fair. So you didn't miss much.
All right. So how's it going, man? You've been tied up. You're actually in like the epicenter of where most people probably believe it's the most dangerous to be during this whole thing. Huh? Have you stayed in New York the whole time?
Yeah. I don't know. It's fine. It's really, I mean, yeah, of course it sucks and there's lots of cases, but there's 8 million people here. So I don't think, proportionately speaking, like you don't really like, when it first started happening, people were hitting me up, like, random people who I don't talk to, like uncles that I don't normally talk to or whatever. They're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "It's fine. Everything's fine." I mean, it's not, but for me it is. I'm not dodging zombies or whatever.
Yeah.
There was only once where I was riding my bike past a hospital and I saw a bunch of body bags being loaded into a semi. But so that was it. That was literally the only time I kind of felt like, I'm seeing this epidemic and it's kind of a disaster. But I think for how massive, how big the population is here and how close together everyone is, it's pretty, we don't see anything day to day like that. So
yeah, that seems to be the craziest thing about this. I mean, I think anywhere in the world that you are, unless you're actually in a hospital, I guess you're not really seeing it, and it's hard to decipher what the fuck is going on really from the outside. But you've seemed to stay busy. You're putting out new music. Congratulations on the new track that just came out. As always, evolving and putting new ideas and new concepts together, kind of along the same lines.
Yeah, thanks, man.
How did this? You were actually, we met. How many years ago now? 6-7 years ago, probably.
At least, yeah. I'd say 7. Yeah.
And you've been you've been a working, as well as an incredible producer. You've been a working DJ pretty much full time now. Like that's how you've been bringing home the bread,
that's
so
my
to
job.
speak.
Yeah.
And so how have you evolved, or how has the scenario played itself out for you? Like now you can't DJ at all. So what do you do? I know a lot of people are doing live streams and stuff like that. I don't really know if you've been doing any of that, but I know you've been obviously hard at work producing and putting out new music. But what do you see I see a lot of the restaurant industry, for example, has been hit hard by this, and a lot of people are talking about it. But I don't see too much conversation going on about, for example, DJs like yourself who are live DJs and really incredible live DJs who are best connecting with crowds. I guess a lot of producers made the transition to Twitch and these kind of streaming outlets. But how have you dealt with this, or how are you dealing with this, and what do you see the future holding for people like yourself?
Yeah, I did not really jump on the Twitch train. I've been a guest on a few people's live streams, and that was fun. But I just don't feel like I want to just like play my music into the abyss every day. I mean, like, it's fun. I feel like it's just a lot of people just, you know, it's like, well, it's an excuse to DJ every day, and that's what I like to do. I think like some people. A lot of people do it, I think, because they want to maintain relevance in people's minds. Like, hey, I still exist. Don't forget about me. And there's definitely something to that. And I think if I wasn't so already sort of planning on just putting a lot of focus into production, I might be doing that. But for me, it was just like, okay, this is an opportunity to make all the tracks that I've been wanting to make. And, you know, everyone's like, okay, I'm just going to take a month or two and go to a deserted cabin and just like, you know, bang it out, a bunch of stuff out. And that's what I feel like, actually, in a way, like this has been my deserted island of, you know, I think like, some people are, they get followings on Twitch, and that's cool. But I don't think the future has to necessarily be like that. It's just not the same. And it's cool, and it's cool to connect with people. But no, I'm not trying to be live streaming on like that. That's like, it's just, everything's going to get more and more, it's going to undervalue DJing even more if we go that route. Really, it's, you know, it's just like, it's just, live streams are going to become a dime a dozen the attention span. No, it's just not the same. It doesn't translate, and people don't listen to your live streams on proper speakers. So it's not like being in a club. Like, it's fun, but yeah, I just, like I said, I just preferred to use my time to, like, you know, learn more about production and get better at producing, and just putting out a ton of stuff. Or making a ton of stuff.
It's definitely an interesting evolution. I feel like, I mean, I don't know how many people or how much people know about you that might listen to this, but you also are like a turntablist. Like, you're a real OG DJ. And the evolution into Twitch was, for me, kind of something that would have happened, or I guess the natural progression from that old school type of DJ that you are, that's really connected to the crowd, even through, I mean, huge nightclubs, CDJs, everything switching to USB sticks instead of carrying around crates, and really understanding music and how it flows. I do see, I have seen, and I'm sure you have seen over the past few decades, a massive de-evolution in quality and necessity for quality in DJing as an act, you know? Do you see that coming? I mean, do you feel maybe because we've missed it so much and because it went to Twitch, there will be some comeback to, or do you think this shit's lost forever? I mean, I miss it, man. I remember listening to the first tracks I heard of yours, or the first mixes I heard of yours, and there was cuts in the mixes, and I was like, oh fuck. And I asked you, I was like, where did those cuts come from? And you were like, oh, I did it. And I was like, what the fuck? Nobody does this shit anymore. And now you just have go ahead. Sorry.
It's funny because I actually have a space now to set up my turntables, and I was going to do that, except my mixer is broken, and I was like, okay, well, I need to drop some money on a new mixer, and that was the plan. But then I decided instead to buy a bunch of new plugins, basically. But the other thing I didn't say about live streaming is that it's cool because you can play more of what you want to play and do more of what you want to do. So I do think like the sort of turntablist dudes, like it is in a way, it's a good time for them to get more attention. There aren't, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of them still doing that. But yeah, like versus DJing in a club where where my gigs, most of, no one really cares what you're doing. You just have to be playing the song they want or whatever. You can sort of more do like, yeah, I guess in a way you have people's attention. Well, I don't know about having their more attention more, but you have more, I guess, artistic license to get more technical and do sort of fun, interesting stuff where you don't have to focus on keeping people at a place, dancing, drinking, etc. So perhaps, because there are some people who have more license to do that on Twitch, there are some people who, some more people who notice who would not have necessarily noticed before. So if we're being optimistic, then we could say, but
let's be optimistic.
Also realistically, I mean, I think there's always been an audience for it, and it'll always be kind of underground. I mean, they had the Goldie Awards still. I mean, I still make mixes, and I don't really, I mean, like I said, my turntables or my mixers out of commission, but I don't do cuts on my mixes anymore, because for me now it's more just about putting together all these songs and like sort of editing them, and yeah, just sort of, it's like a collage at this point. But if I had them set up, then sure, why not? I would do that. So for me, it might just be it's like a touch of laziness, but also a touch of just being like, well, people probably won't care that much.
Yeah, or even understand for that matter. You know what I mean? I look at
it'll always be, I'll always do it, and I'll always go back to it. I love to go back and just scratch. Like, I have a sort of protege right now. My dude, he's like this really young kid from Africa, but he's like a genius. And we were scratching on my rooftop, and like he was like be blown away, and I was like, oh man, I forgot how fun this was. And then of course he picks up on it right away, and I was like, man, this is like, it's like more of a fun hobby you do. It's not even about doing it for other people for me, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I love to do this. It's like, yeah, it's just
I think that guys like you, Mar is another one, Astronomar is another one who's people don't even really know that past, but I relate it the same way. I think with any art form, if you start in the bit like photography, cooking, and if you start shooting film and photography, for example, you have a very your toolbox is a little bit bigger when it comes down to understanding what music, or sorry, in photography, what photos fundamentally are, or in music, if you start hauling records and having to, spot positions in tracks that you're going to cut. It's the same in the kitchen also with us. If you go through the cycle without all the tools in the beginning, I think that you have a bit of a more unique eye, and that comes through in your music. And it's unfortunate actually that a lot of kids aren't, like you said, that this kid's mind is blown by scratching, but where would you have started DJing 15 years ago? You never would have picked, very few people would have picked up Serato, for example, right? How long ago did that technology even come out? I feel like
Serato is it's now, let's see, it's been almost 15 years, I think, actually.
So
it's been almost 15 years. Yeah.
So it's crazy to see. Kids are going to be like, what the fuck is it? Why do I want to go pick up a fucking needle, bro? This shit, But I also appreciate dudes that hold on to that. For me, I'm much more interested in that shit. I still listen to like some OG hip hop dudes from Denver, YG. Shout out YG. I'm not sure if you met him when he was there, but like a super OG who I believe still are doing it the right way.
Yeah, it lends itself. You're right. Like, I mean, I think the technology that does the shortcuts, you're going to get what you put into it. It's not going to be as well thought out and interesting. So I think like the whole technique and process lends itself to something that's more thought out and, yeah, I mean, more creative and just, you know, like I think one of the differences is where a lot of DJs back in the day, quote unquote, they were, it's like you want to push the limits of the audience. You want to see how far you can take them in some sort of weird, obscure direction, or surprise them with something that they've never heard or that they didn't expect or something like that. And that is definitely part of the more older generation, I think, of DJing. Whereas now there's, I mean, yeah, if we're going to compare, I don't necessarily need to be like, well, it was better back then, but it's different. It's just, you know, you're playing to an audience. So the audience expects something, or an audience expects to let you take control and take them on a journey or whatever. I was just watching a documentary actually about dubstep, and they were also talking about the smoking ban. They were like, okay, now that you can't smoke inside, people have to go outside to smoke, and they don't stay with you as long. You don't have their attention for as long. So you can't bring them on as much to your weird spaceship. It's not as easy because they'll just every 20 minutes want to go out inside and smoke. So, you know, it was now it seems like back then it was like, you know, utopia. It was like, wow, people were just down for whatever you wanted to play. And
there was I never really thought that deeply about, you know, what you've just been stating is it really was, if you went to watch a DJ, you went to watch a DJ, and there was that element of like, where the fuck did he pull that sample out of? Like just a dude flipping records, like, what the fuck? How did he mix that shit together? And the thing about it that was incredibly impressive was that you had to have a fucking closet full of records and you had to know specifically on what record you were going to start. Like the whole game was completely different. I remember we did a show, we put on a show in Denver, and we brought out, it was like Maceo, Craze was the headliner. It was like Maceo. I'm not sure who else played, maybe Chris or somebody like that. But I remember we brought Craze out because Craze is a fucking legend turntablist who still, this was, you know, and again, this was 5 or 6 years ago. He was still cutting, like he was using a MIDI trigger, but he was still like cutting during the show. And I remember walking out, we were standing on the stage and I was like, fuck this shit, I gotta go watch this shit from the front, you know, like I gotta feel the crowd. And so I remember walking out into the crowd of like full electronic head Denver kids at the time. It was a huge scene there, and standing in the middle of the crowd and literally feeling like everyone around me was moving, and I was just standing watching what he was doing. He was doing like, he was fucking mixing under the leg, behind the back, spinning. No one was watching a fucking thing that he was doing, and nobody even understood that he was live cutting the track. Everybody was just lost in their world. And you're right. That was that shit used to happen. I hope that we can go back. And I think the cool thing for me is that it seems like the network or the community that you vibe with there in New York does kind of still have a little bit of this, no? Like the shows that you were playing before COVID happened, for example, it seemed like you were doing some things that were unique, and some of that shit still exists. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's definitely people. Yeah. There's definitely people who appreciate that, and they'll come up to you and they'll tell you, they'll be like, you know, I see you, what you're doing, and I'm paying attention. Or it's a lot of times it's dancers, or it's people who've been involved with the culture for a long time. So yeah, it's great. It's great that there are actually people who be like, I see what you're doing and I appreciate it, and you know, that's why I'm here. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I didn't realize you were still existed. Yeah, totally.
On that old school tip, tell me a little bit, because we never talked too much about this a little bit, but how did you get started? Like, where did this whole idea of being a DJ start for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm from Cleveland, and we actually had a big there. There was Hip Hoppers Holiday that was in Cincinnati, and there was a pretty a sizable hip hop culture happening there. And I was part of the Hip Hop Congress at Ohio University, where I went to college. And yeah, for me, it was backpacker hip hop, and it was like, just hearing those dudes cutting, and that was just, it was like otherworldly to me. Like, it was just like, man, this is, I don't know. It just, I didn't see, it was before I went to shows, so I didn't see the people I didn't see the DJs scratching. I just heard it, and I was like, oh my God, what is going on? I don't know. It was very much a game changer for me. And then, then I was buying records and getting 2 copies of them and juggling them, and then finding all the samples, trying to find samples, digging through the crates and stuff, going, in the dollar store or the dollar bins, and using Fruity Loops and all that stuff. And I loved hip hop, and that was like my whole thing. And then, I just realized, like, okay, I need to sort of appeal. If people want to dance, like, like, it wasn't, I had like so many hundreds of hip hop records, and they were all 95 BPM, like, DJ Premier beats, which are amazing, but people don't necessarily want to dance to them for an entire night. So then it was like, okay, I'm getting more into funk, soul, disco, or indie rock and stuff like that. And just went out from there, because I also don't like to just stick to one genre. I'm kind of ADD in a way like that, where I just like to just play the super variety kitchen sink style, and like my thing is kind of finding a way to bridge the gap between different things that maybe don't necessarily seem like they go together at first glance, and that's kind of how I still get my kicks, is like, I don't know. I mean, playing playing a disco record, and then out of it figuring out some reggae, like a reggae track to go out of it, and then and then going into like a trap beat, and then going back into house or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of your tracks that always comes in, like, literally just pops up into my head. I think it's one of the most genius ones. Is Mind on My Money? Is it Mind on My Money? Is that what it is?
Oh, Mindset on You Money. Yes.
Mindset on You Money. That one's a perfect example of that, of your manic style of thinking. That to me is incredible. Look, dude, I think the same way. It's incredible. And I think that shit's important. It's important to be manic. It's important to not, I mean, there's people that go into this. One of the reasons I really appreciate you as an artist also is that you are totally comfortable inside yourself in doing what you do, and you're not seeking to change to climbing the ladder, for example. You're cool. You got your shit, you're creating, and that's what you do. And I truly see you as an artist in that form. That's why I've always been stoked on everything you do.
Yeah. Thanks, bud.
Where did self-help come from? Because I went to your website, which I don't know if I've ever been to your website, but I love it. It's beautiful. And the first thing it says on the page is just to see you smile and enjoy yourself. And I really feel like as long as I've known you, and then just like running into the fact that you're on the coast of Oaxaca doing a silent meditation retreat. We hadn't spent, right. I mean, we spent like party times together essentially, and never really spent a ton of time, but I know you're a very connected individual, and where does self-help come from for you? Where did that name come from, and this embodiment of just to see you smile and enjoy yourself?
Yeah. It was, definitely, I think, the first idea was like, oh, music is my therapy. Creativity is my outlet. It's my therapy. You know what I mean? And that was definitely the original intent of it. And then it takes on more meanings the more you exist, you know, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm doing this because this is like, you know, this is my therapy, but in turn, I'm also sort of projecting this onto other people, and other people are, you know, it's also can be sort of therapeutic for other people. You know, a lot of people's dance therapy is dancing. And so self-help ultimately becomes a term that like, it's just good for sort of everyone. Yeah. And, it's like, you know, it's a unifying thing. It's like finding something in common for everyone to, you know, enjoy and connect with. And that, you know, creates a sense of harmony and unity, I think. And that's the ultimate goal of any sort of self-help or meditation retreat or whatever is, yeah, just that concept of union and whatnot. So yeah, it's funny because I mean, I think you know this, but I have a new name now for my new productions, but
yeah.
That one, but self-help is, yeah, it's like the underlying, you know, basic ground on which I started. And actually, Au Contraire, when I really start thinking about that one, Au Contraire is kind of almost, Au Contraire is basically like me being like, okay, I live in a place where there's so many, every single type of influence is, every single type of thing is trying to advertise to you, there's everything, and you almost have to filter it out by saying, fuck this, fuck that, that's not me, this is not me, this is not me. I prefer, it's almost like me being like, no, that's not who I am. I have to, you have to be contradictory just to even be yourself, just to express like who you really are. And that's so important. And that's like a form of self-help too. It's almost like my new form of self-help has become, fuck that, that's not me. Like I am being a contrarian because I have to be, because I need to do that in order to just express who I am genuinely. And there's other things to it too, but yeah. So it's kind of like a new iteration of that.
Yeah. I mean, that shit, I look, I understand that 100%. I go crazy inside a city. I need to get further away. The further I get away from living in a city, the better I feel. I'm just not that well equipped, probably. I think I'm evolving as a human being, but I'm not that well equipped to be able to survive in that environment yet. And you do seem to have mastered that. I've always found it funny knowing you and knowing that I think from time to time, like, I wonder what the fuck is Danny doing there? Like, what the fuck does he do on a daily basis? Is he like, is he sitting on his rooftop meditating?
You're like, I'm worried about him.
Yeah. No, I'm like, what is he doing? Like, does he just stay inside his house? No, but it's interesting that you say that, because I guess that is your defense. No, just to say, fuck you. I won't do what you tell me.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine, shout out. But,
right. Yeah, no, I mean, if it wasn't for all of this stuff, I'd probably, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a sensitive snowflake, and I'm very much a Midwestern person. And so, yeah, a lot of it is like, I feel like, you know, this big city, it's like, well, why you should be this way, you know, like, I don't know. It's just all these pressure to be one way or another. And if you succumb to that pressure, for me, I would just go crazy, you know, like,
do you feel like you feed on surviving in that space? Like, do you feel as if part of what keeps you there is that you're able to survive, like watch it all from arm's length and say, that's not me. That's one of the reasons you're there, is just that dichotomy of existence that you live there.
Yeah. Well, because then you learn more about yourself too. You know, it's a way of defining yourself. And I have actually like trained myself to almost like get off on being like, nope, fuck that, nope, like telling people no. I mean, I've gone to, you know, spiritual healers who are like, you're not speaking your mind enough. You're holding this in. It's becoming poisonous. So I know I have to do that. And I have, you know, there's Chris, like, you know, this dude gave me tiger's eye he's like, this will give you confidence to say what's on your mind. And whether that's real or not, it's a reminder to be like, well, you know what? Fuck that. I think that's stupid. And I mean, I'll say it in the nice way. I'm not a dick, you know, and that's the other thing. I know I'm not, or at least not super, you know, at least my intentions are always like good. Like, you know, I think this is bullshit, but that's okay if you know, if that's what you like, then that's fine. But yeah, I mean, it is.
You have dickheaded thoughts. You just don't let them out.
Yeah. Or if I do, I can find a way to frame them in a way that's like, okay, well, you know, I agree to disagree or whatever.
But I don't necessarily think it's I kind of, to some extent, think that we need a little bit more dickheadedness in this world. At least educated dickheadedness from guys like you who do sit on the outskirts and collect knowledge and see how things operate. I do feel like one of the unfortunate things that's happening to our society, and this goes into creativity as well, is that no one wants to be a dick and no one wants to stand up. We all want to accept everything. All influencers are going to support influencers. You follow me, I'll follow you. This whole environment is a little bit toxic, and it has to have a glass ceiling. And the glass ceiling of it has to be a lot of people emotionally wrecked by the fact that they can't really, that they don't really have this
altering opinions or differing opinions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I see it too. And and you know, we both know DJs are very much, they try to be as agreeable as possible, or just people in music or whatever. It's very, you know, it's a lot of, and I understand the value of that too, because even if somebody does something that you think is terrible, everyone's just trying to do something positive. Like most people are trying to do something positive and create something, you know, and it comes from a good place. But then, yeah, if everyone jumps on the bandwagon, I go, oh, I have to be like this now. And I can't express any bad vibes. Like,
yeah,
you know, I can't be bad. I can't say anything bad vibey or whatever. Like that's bullshit, because bad vibes are fucking just as much a part of existence as good vibes, you know?
Yeah. And I don't think that you like, look, I've thought a lot about this, especially, you know, speaking for myself from a creative standpoint, and this goes into music, this goes into art, this goes into everything. There's so many fucking cover bands. Like the easiest way to make yourself, if you're someone who is really interested in being a chef, for example, it's very easy for you to recreate dishes that someone else has made before, a pasta, cheeseburger, fucking whatever it is, but with your own twist. And now all of a sudden you're really highly regarded for being the best at making fucking spaghetti and meatballs in your neighborhood. Well, in reality, everybody can do that at their house. Why are we patting somebody on the back for doing that? We're actually holding them back from reaching their creative peak or their creative capabilities. And I see the same thing in music. You know, I call it the cover band, and 99% of chefs are cover bands, and art is kind of the same way. I was recently looking through like a Mesoamerican art book here, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, are we ever going to have a fucking original piece of art again? Like when does originality, like how do you stop it? The way I stop it myself is I don't pay attention to anything fucking anyone else is doing. I don't look at pictures on fucking, if I'm trying to create a menu, for example, for Pirata, my tasting menu concept, the entire time I don't look at a fucking thing. And I consciously think when I put something on the plate, I reel through my head if I've seen that before. And if I've seen it again, I'll throw the whole thing in the trash and start over again. But it's almost impossible right now because our subconscious is so powerful that if we don't have peers putting us in check in this process, we fall into what music, for example, photos are, all these things become. No.
Yeah. It's so hard. There's that collective consciousness too. It's like part of it is, yes, nothing's going to be original because we're all just a product of the past or whatever. So I think like sitting down and being like, I have to make something that is 100% original is almost impossible. But I think you're right though. Like, I think the real value in, like, you could either try to make something that sounds like this, or you can do something really, I mean, this is such a cliche, but really the most unique thing is what comes from the deepest part of yourself. You know what I mean? Because when it comes down to it, that is the most unique thing, is your own voice. So like with food, yeah, it's the same thing. You want to create something that's novel, that's unique. And that would, because that's when you're listening to nothing else except for yourself, that's completely the Au Contraire thing too. Fuck that. I'm going to listen to myself. Like, you know, you're going to make something that it's like when you distill it down, and that's the recipe for success is making something that is uniquely yours, as opposed to something else that can be easily duplicated, or because you don't have competition. If you make something that's amazing that no one, it's just directly coming from your own unique sensibilities, then no one can compete with that unless, you know, I guess, unless they try to copy you. But
yeah, and I think that the reason most people don't do that is the fear of not being accepted, or not getting 100 new followers this week, or not having, you know, playing shows to fucking nobody in Puerto Escondido on the top of a bar on Valentine's Day, for example. But I don't know if you have the same feeling, but this goes back to that conversation about, for example, picking up records 15 years ago instead of, you know, Ableton now. And that's where your starting point is that I relish in people telling me, like, I almost relish in when I create something new, something truly unique. I love when people tell me that I don't know what I'm doing, or that it's crazy, or that it's because I've been cooking for so long, and you have to understand that if I put a piece of work out, it's based on, you know, 20 plus years of understanding what I'm doing. Not only that, but also months of creation and time. And so I don't know if you have the same feeling when you put music out, for example, that if someone doesn't accept it, you're like, yeah, fuck you. You just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. Because and especially, you have experience and you trust what you're doing, and you know, that's the most important thing, is you're trusting what, you know, that's why you do it. 'Cause that's what you do. I don't know. So it's like, yeah, whatever reason this person has to hate on this right now is because of a confusion, or because of a lack of experience, or because they just can't appreciate it. So, okay, it's not for them. Like, yeah, that's fine. You can listen to Avicii or whatever, or go eat spaghetti and meatballs to your heart's delight. That's fine. But you're looking for something different from this than you know what I mean? Like, some people are looking for familiarity, like comfort food or whatever. And, we're trying to do something innovative or I don't know what we're just trying to express ourselves. Put something new out there. Put something new and positive and unique out there. You know.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we're lost in, 'cause that's why I said, I don't know if like that's one thing I battle with almost every day is like, will real creativity exist? Can it exist? Like you said, it's very difficult because of the year. It's 2021 and there's been a lot of fucking creation and there's a lot of subconscious influences. And also, will it ever be appreciated again? Or are we in this space? I mean, do you ever feel trapped in music? Like what you're doing, like there's just so much bullshit out there for you to fucking ever get seeing what you're doing?
I mean, there's always that thought, but I don't care because this is what I do and this is what I love to do. You know what I mean? So regardless of my intention, of course, that is the recipe for success and, financial success or whatever, but I'm not really doing it for I'm doing it because I love to do it. And it's my favorite thing to do. And like you said, there's so much bullshit, and you're gasping for air to be heard. But that stuff doesn't last, and so it's like one of those things. It doesn't matter how slow you go, as long as you don't stop. I mean, that is actually that is one of my favorite. But for real, like, because I believe that the most successful stuff does have the unique voice and does come from that genuine place. So if anyone has a fighting chance of all of the bullshit to be heard, it's me and people like me who are actually doing it, from a genuine place that becomes refined over time. And I have noticed it's just going to be constantly shifting. Like SoundCloud 5 or 6 years ago was awesome. Like, I was just thinking about this, you put a track out, you have 2,000 followers, you put a track out on SoundCloud, 1,000 people listen to it into a day. And it's like, sweet, and now it's the same thing as Facebook. It's the same thing. You have to pay to promote the song, even to get your followers to have it come across their feed, because that's just the way the fucking algorithm works now. So now we're fighting this algorithm to be heard. But then there's Bandcamp, and then you realize also that, okay, internet is a good tool, but really it always just comes down to connecting with people in real life and, I don't know, just finding other ways to evolve and adapt and stuff. And I mean, even with a Facebook page now, you post something on your Facebook page, you literally have to pay to promote the page just so your followers will see it. It's like, okay. It's like, once I figured that out, I was like, okay, what am I struggling against? It becomes over. It's like genuine art gets made. It becomes something great where people can connect to. Then capitalist vultures come in and it sucks. And then we're on to the next, whatever that is, like, Bandcamp, I guess, is cool now.
Yeah. And how crazy it is that we're now looking at this, that the world has become so separated from interaction. And I guess COVID, I fucking hate talking about this shit, but I guess it just amplified the situation. But that, like, for example, 10 to 15 years ago, if you were going to DJ, your EPK would say what shows you played and how many people were at the venue. Now it's probably more important how many Instagram followers and Twitter followers you have, because the club can bring in the people. If we're talking about going to a club, the club or the bar can bring the people in. It's just about how many people you can spread their message to. So now we're worried about how many people in fucking Zimbabwe know who you are, and not who in your community you truly are as a human being and how you can affect people. And that's kind of how growth used to start, right? Like in bands or DJs, they would build a hum in their local community, and then they would go to the little communities around, and then it would slowly spread. And now it's like instantly, how can we get to fucking Japan on tour next year? We're within the next 6 months. And so, yeah, it's weird and it's difficult. I think that that's why I said New York seems like a fucking crazy place for you. But the more we talk about it, the more I see like there is those little pockets. No, there is those little places you can exist and you can create a little community, and that can be your zone.
Oh, I mean, that's the great thing about, that will always be the one saving grace of New York, is that there's something for everybody. Everybody can find a way to exist. I mean, if you have the fucking stomach for it, like, you can find your people here and you learn so much. I've got so many insights. And I mean, like taking the social media thing to its logical conclusion, the way it's set up is that eventually Instagram followers aren't going to mean shit because of exactly what I'm talking about. Eventually it's going to become, well, anybody can buy their followers, but you can't reach them because there's going to be a paywall to reach them. And that's eventually not going to mean anything either. And, it's just the forces. It's like New York is like, it's this battle between culture and capitalism. And it's always like culture has these amazing movements, and then 5 to 10 years later, capitalism turns them into a fucking fast food chain or whatever. And it just keeps happening. It's this like cycle, and just to see how it happens is fucking fascinating. And it happens so much faster now because of the internet. And, there's so many people who booked me at gigs, or I met because they were influencers or whatever. And they're great people. But of course, 6 months later, they're DJ so-and-so, because why not? Why wouldn't they be? They're fucking influencers. So now they're DJs. And I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not even mad. Like, I'm just like, that's cool. I like this person. Like, sure, if they're good, then let them do it. If they're not good, or this is not really for them, then they won't last a year and it'll just be a phase, like whatever. It's just, I'm going to keep doing it. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's been another toxic reality of the situation. I mean, this is in my field, for example, like, look, though, I kind of hate the word chef at this point. It kind of makes me cringe to even think about it, even though it is what I like. Look, for me, when I started, when I met you, I was taking a break from cooking for the reason of the evolution of the industry. I was so over what it was becoming. When I was 13 years old, I started washing dishes. My grandfather owned a restaurant. Before I saw, like, if you were going to be a chef, a few people went to culinary school and that was cool. But if you were going to be a chef, you put your time in. Even if you went to culinary school, when you got out, you had to grind. And I started washing dishes when I was 13 in a French restaurant, and just saw the work that people put in. And when you got that raise, when you got, after 3 years, when I got promoted to, a line cook from a, I was like dishwasher, line cook. Every time I got it, it was like, fuck, dude, I earned this motherfucker. You know what I mean? And so that word meant something to me, and the coat meant something. The chef coat meant something to me, and now kids go to culinary school and they get out and they get chef positions and they have no fucking idea what's going on. And they will, and it's a hindrance. And this goes back to like the community patting itself on the back. It's like, you don't understand the work, the blood, the sweat and the tears. But like you said about sticking it out, I just don't give a fuck. That's why I cook. That's why I'm in my kitchen every night. That's why I've put together a restaurant and a system of restaurants that I believe that can work, where I can be cooking every night. So I 100% agree that just sticking it out and fucking putting in the time is what's going to work. And on the tip of like, yes, the influencers now, all you got to have is a YouTube channel and you're a chef, and it's, all you have to do is be fucking Paris Hilton and get a little bit of help for a few months from a DJ, and you're a DJ. Do you see also like the technology plays a major role in this situation as well? No, like being able to pick up any of the programs now that exist rather than a record player.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love that. Now that I'm thinking more about a restaurant and how it's run, it's almost like to be an actual chef who knows how to run a restaurant must be, it's so complex. There's so many moving parts. It's so many variables. I mean, I almost feel like being a chef is even more sort of really being a person who can actually be a competent chef to run a restaurant has got to take even more experience than to be a DJ or whatever. So that kind of is interesting. I haven't thought about it all the way like that. But same thing with technology. Like I think eventually, it's funny. I didn't even really think about the restaurant industry in this way either, but it's with everything. It's with photography. It's with literally any trade or art or something that's sort of a combination of art and science. People are going to invent technology to make it easier for people to do it to a certain extent. But the people who have been doing it the longest will have the most comprehensive skill set, and they'll probably have to broaden their skill set, but they're the ones who will know how to make the final product that you need. Whereas someone who knows how to do Photoshop for this and that, that's cool, but you're not going to know how to build a brand for somebody, so obviously that's kind of like, I feel like that's a mistake. That's like the technology has presented this faulty notion that, okay, I'm buying this controller now, I'm a DJ now. And it doesn't work like that. And so it's almost presenting this false, and that's, like I said, that's where the capitalism comes in, because that's what they want you to think. Anybody can do this. Just buy this and you can do it.
Yeah, and I think that's where the failure is going to come in, right? It's like for you, for example, here's an easy way to relate it. Like, so I always say that a chef and a cook are two different things, in the sense that like a chef knows how to put out fires and deal with situations. Like if the fucking power goes out and the toilets are clogged, there's lightning storm happening outside and someone's dying in the back, we can still cook food, and we can still get the product to the table. We can still do it. You're not going to notice a difference, right? It's the same as, like, for example, you with your skill set, if you fly to fucking Omaha, Nebraska, and you show up and your backline's not there, I'm pretty sure that you can play on whatever the fuck they have, right? Like if they've got a fucking RCA record player from the 60s, you can probably jump on and put something together. Whereas a kid who's just getting a fucking MIDI controller, or a kid who's just out of culinary school, who's been taught a bunch of rules that don't really make sense, show up to fucking Omaha, Nebraska, and either one of these situations, they're not going to be able to create, right? And I think that the negative aspect of this is such a narrow-mindedness, believing a lot of this newer generation. And I see even in kids that are like my age, or in that, like 30 to 35 even still have this. It's like, well, I was told that this is the way it's supposed to be, and this is the right way to do it, and there's no other way to do it. It's like, okay, listen, motherfucker, get rid of all those rules. Your school doesn't mean shit. Let me step up and show you. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, it's like you've learned the science. They've learned the science, but then then there's the art, and it's like that's really what kind of makes it unique.
Yeah, I don't know. I always said too, like I spent my 20s figuring out how things work. And then as I got into my late 20s and early 30s, that's when I even allowed myself to think about why things work. So instead of trying to justify, I just shut my fucking mouth and learned as many tricks as I could so that I could move forward into that space. And we're a fucking dying breed, bro. I mean, guys, and we need guys like you. And this all kind of circles back to this conversation we were having about the community and how I do believe that we have a responsibility, not to say what you're doing is necessarily garbage. Just, hey, this is a better way to do it, or step it up, bro. give you a 1-star review instead of a 5-star review, not patting each other on the back, because what we create also is a society that doesn't know how to consume fucking music, for example, bro. Where are we at with consuming music right now? What are people listening to, and what were you listening to? Think about hip hop. Where's hip hop, bro?
Well, with Spotify, there are a lot of people who are just like, I don't know, I just look up a playlist for chill vibes or whatever, and it's like they don't know the artists and stuff. And
what was your process of consuming music? Like you personally, like remember, like an album, like back in the day when you were 15 years old.
Oh man. Yeah. It's sad that people don't. Yeah. That's the thing. When you care about it so much and it's so powerful for you, and you play someone a song and you can't even get them to pay attention to it, or they don't listen to it. They don't give it the time and attention, like I listened to Stankonia, I was at my best friend's, his grandparents' farm. We were outside drinking wine, smoking weed. And, we were out, like we had these air mattresses out there, like, so we could camp out. And I listened to that entire album after everyone else had passed out. And I was just like, zooted. And I listened to the entire album all the way through on headphones. And just from the intro to the end of the album, I was just like, all of these sounds, I never even thought about them being used in hip hop. And it's fucking just, man, that was such a burned into my brain, like it's just transformative. It takes you to a completely different place, and so yeah, that's how or in the car, or you drive somewhere for an hour, you're like, sweet, I'm going to put this whole album on in the car and give it my full attention, while I'm on the highway or whatever, and stuff like that. And it's like, you get the impact of it. You get what they're trying to do. And I don't know. I know some people do. But the people who don't, maybe they wouldn't have done that. There's probably some people who kind of fall off, who they may have been more inclined to do it had there been less of an attention economy now or whatever. But yeah, for the people who really care, they'll make it happen, I think. But then for the people who don't, they'll say, okay, Spotify, chill vibes, go.
That's one thing that I definitely miss, is like an album, in your hands, or waiting for the album to come out and going to the record store, whatever, the CD store. I wasn't going to the fucking record store. The cassette tape store.
The tapes, man. Tapes were sweet. Green Day Dookie tape was blue. I was just like, what?
Green Day Dookie, as a side note, was my first ever owned piece of music. Me and my sister saved enough money to buy that album when it came out. And it was also my first concert that I went to when I was like 13. Wow. But yeah, it was the same. Like you read the lyrics, man. You knew what you were listening to. Now they're not even important. But I hope that we can get back there. You know what I mean? I really do. And I think that to some extent, like you said, which was very intelligent, that there is a glass ceiling for this thing. What happens when everybody's an influencer? What happens at that point when everybody's an influencer?
Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen, because who knows if people are self-aware enough to like see, or, I mean, people who have experienced it the other way, they'll know, but the people who haven't, who knows what will happen after that. I'm certain that there will be a marketing company who will offer a solution, or, there will be solutions offered, but I don't think they'll be good. And I think eventually people will realize, okay, this kind of sucks. But who knows if they'll have the sort of even thoughts to do something different. I don't know. It's really interesting, man. But like, I don't know because it's not even in our imaginations what it could be like in 20 years or something.
Yeah, the next stage is going to be rehab for all of these people, I believe.
Well, yeah, because it oftentimes it's a cycle. So I do feel like if you look at something from a broad historical context, it's a cycle of destruction, rebuilding, or whatever. That would be my best guess.
Yeah, I mean, the funniest thing is that now we have one of the ones to me that's probably the most concerning, like pushing art and creativity and all this bullshit aside, is actually the healers, the self-proclaimed healers that are now taking storm, and everybody has access to this information and they consume just a little bit of it. Plant medicine, for example, is becoming very popular, and people are consuming in a way that they believe they're getting knowledge, but I don't really know if they are. And then they're trying to fix people without being fixed themselves, and that's even a greater issue. I mean, I believe I haven't done it yet, but I hope to commit to a silent retreat like you, because I believe that's an incredibly powerful medicine, though. What you did going to the silent meditation retreats is probably a lot more powerful than somebody telling you about how you can better yourself.
Oh God. I mean, you have to experience it. And also it's very powerful coming from like one of the loudest places in the world, to a place of complete silence. So you see the dichotomy or whatever, like the difference between the two. But it's something, yeah, of course it's something you have to experience as opposed to just being told about or whatever.
And that seems like that's what's being passed down now, is like healing. Healing is coming through this fucking thing right here, in like this fucking little square box with a computer in it, which, look, I think that some of that shit is great. I think daily reminders that positivity is necessary is great, but I also believe that's probably one of the most toxic things that's happening now, is this heal yourself through.
Yeah, it has to be backed. It has to be backed by real on the ground work, and there's actually psychology, like those therapists, the text therapists. That is like modern psychology. If it tells you anything, it'll tell you that does not work, because it's face to face. Like what is it called? Like mentalizing, I think is the word, where you're actually creating this like sort of loop of understanding with someone else, and a human who's in the same room with you. That is what heals people in therapy, is being seen. And texting is literally just, I mean, I won't say it doesn't do anything, because it's something is better than nothing, but it's not. I understand what they say it does.
Yeah, I mean, I think the energy is what heals, and like you're saying, you need to be near energy, whether it be nature or a human being. You need to be near energy, and if what you're doing is getting your healing through a text message, like you're saying, I haven't heard of that yet. I'll have to look into it. It sounds a bit crazy, but if that's what you're waiting on that, then that becomes a drug. Then that text message every day becomes a drug. If you don't have that, you're not going to be fixed. So yeah, maybe what we need more of is music.
I mean,
live music.
I can't disagree with you there. I also think once it comes back, there's just going to be, I do think, just based on myself, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't wait to go back to the club. I want to fucking while out.
And I know you will, bro. I know you will.
Yeah. So I think I have faith that the in-person real life experiences people will always realize that those are, better.
We'll get back there. All right, brother. Well, before we clap out of this bad boy, which hopefully we got, well, thank you very much for being here. First time. Let everybody know where they can check you out, your new music, what you got going on. Give me a quick rundown.
Sure. Everything is, it's Au Contraire Beats. Au Contraire is like the French saying. And then beats, like the bump and beats.
Not like
okay, just edit that out. But yeah, everything's Au Contraire beats on Spotify or SoundCloud or Bandcamp and all that stuff. So yeah, I just put out the new song with Zuzuka Poderosa. It's yeah, I mean, all that stuff. I stand by it. And there's some mixes, some hour-long DJ mixes on there as well. There's going to be I have a new mix, and the song is going to be airing on this radio station, and it's like the NPR in Germany. It's called Cosmo Radio. I mean, I don't know when you're releasing this podcast, but I think it'll be this Saturday after this one, which is
cool. It'll probably be out. It'll be out by then. I think we're going to wait a little bit on this one.
Okay. Yeah,
we're probably
March 6th.
Cool. Perfect. We'll be right around that time, brother.
Sweet.
Well, I love you. Thank you so much for your energy. Thank you so much for being here. And
it's great to talk to you.
Stick around once I clip this thing. We'll sign off. Thanks everybody for listening. And yeah, thank you to Self-Help / Au Contraire. Peace out.
Yeah. A pleasure, man.